Hello, my name is Mickey and I'm a homeschooling mom of 4 boys. I just started this YouTube channel and I'm so glad that you're here. I hope that you subscribe. I have a video coming out each day this first week. After that, it will just be one a week. I love to help moms bring some calm into the chaotic world of homeschool. And I thought, what a better way than to launch my channel by talking about all things homeschool planning. I want to help simplify it and start at a point where most people don't. So before you even pull out your planner, do not pull it out for this. I want to give you 5 things you can do before you launch into the homeschool year. Number 1, vision. This is something I'm really passionate about and I don't hear practical tips on it often. When you go into your homeschool, the first thing I naturally went and searched was homeschool curriculum, which is great and wonderful and fun. It's a good tool, but it's not the starting point and it's not even where you need to start in your planner. Vision is the planner, and this can become a checklist. This can become a guidepost for what you say yes and no to. One of the best questions I want you to start with is, if there were no rules, as in there were no state guidelines, no Instagram that's looking in, no mom next door, no in-laws questions, what would your homeschool look like? You're going to have all these school things that you think of pop up, but just keep setting those aside. And of course, this isn't going to work out 100% of the time. In every scenario, there are going to be real things and obstacles that you need to work through in these, but this is where we start. What would it look like? Get really specific. For me, a lot of it includes traveling. A lot of it is I would love to go and learn the language, the culture, the history, the geography in the place. Get really specific. For me, a lot of it includes traveling. A lot of it is I would love to go and learn the language, the culture, the history, the geography in the place. I want that context to be what we get from our education. You may also find that as you give some time to this, some of these things begin to seem to conflict and contradict each other. We're going to get creative about that because it doesn't have to. You don't have to decide I'm going to be a world schooler 100% of the time. This could simply be once a year we go on a world schooling trip, a vacation, but we're intentional about it. And it doesn't have to be across the country, across the world. This could be in your town. You can find ways to incorporate this even if you send your kids to school, right? These can be really valuable guideposts for how you're intentional with the time you have with your kids. Okay, number 2. I love this one also. Let's take what we just decided a step further. So as you've got this information of perhaps it's, I would love for our school to be centered around literature. I just want my kids to have a rich basis of literature. I want them to know classic novels. I want us to have these shared experiences around reading together. What I want you to do for step 2 is ask yourself, and what does that accomplish? Essentially, why? The reason I want you to ask yourself this is because you might have put something like literature, which is a wonderful thing to want, and it's really easy to see how that's going to help drive the direction your homeschool goes in. However, I want you to know why you want that. Is it because you want them to have a rich basis of literature? Is it because you heard of Charlotte Mason and so that's on your mind? What do you want to do with that? You want to have a really creative homeschool that's very child-led. Awesome, so do I. Why? What is that going to accomplish? Think through this so that you know where it's heading. I don't want you just to know why you're doing it. In a lot of circles, I hear people talking about, know your why. That's not exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about where. Know where you're going. If literature is your basis, the why for me has been, I want to have shared experiences based around stories. that is the context with which they remember all the stuff they're learning. Number 3, this is a really practical one. So if the first 2 overwhelmed you, this one's really simple. I want you to go to the hslda.org website, and you're going to look up your state laws around homeschooling. It is different for every state, so I cannot simply tell you. I just want you to know, to have this information. You don't need to do anything just yet. However, if you know you're going to be homeschooling and you need to send in a letter of intent, then do that. If you're going through a charter school, oftentimes you don't have to send in a letter because you're, like in my state, I'm technically not considered a homeschooler because I'm going through a school, even though it's for homeschoolers. It's a whole thing. But that's going to give you some good information to know how many days a year do I need to write down that we're schooling? Are there specific hours or testing or things? That's really important information. And oftentimes we see that and we start to feel constricted and confined and like we have to do all these things. But time and time again, even in more restrictive states, I find it tends to be more flexible than you realize. So even if they said you have to have X amount of hours doing it, the way that you could track that can get really creative. So just know that on the side of your mind. Number 4 is to look at I'll put a printable in the description below for a year at a glance. What I want you to do, so this is the most planning part of this whole video. What I want you to do is to go through a year, the next year, whatever your school year is going to look like, and cross out any areas that are going to be vacations or holidays where you know you're going to be busy. Maybe you have family coming in for Christmas time. You're gonna block off some time around that, before and after it, so that you can get ready for it and you're not feeling rushed. So that you can, afterwards, so that you can recover and take a little break and breathe after they leave. I also go through and track, put in when my cycle is going to be happening and cross that off as times when I do not want to be showing up to extra events. I don't want to be doing extra work. I sometimes even will not homeschool very much, if anything, and I make it a very light day or two so that I feel like I'm being taken care of and being included into this whole lifestyle of homeschooling. You can put in anything else that you know is going to be a recurring thing that you should consider. This is when I begin to kind of think through, is this year going to be a year-round homeschool? Or is this going to be a traditional school year? Or how are we going to do it? What is the flow? The final step is to decide what you want to learn, as in what subjects are you covering, and then what are the resources you're going to use to learn those subjects. So perhaps you want to go with more of a unit studies approach. Amazing. Then you're not really looking at subjects usually, depending on the unit studies that you're doing. But if you've got this topic for the unit, then you're going to figure out what the resource is. Maybe you've already decided your curriculum, in which case this step is done already. But if you haven't, this is the time to really consider the first 1 and 2 points that I gave you, which are, what do you want to do? For me, I want a world school, but it's not something we currently can do all year long. However, I'm incorporating one day every single week where we call it an adventure day and we go out and do something. Some of these days we have planned, they're part of our nature group. Some of these days the kids will kind of plan and they'll be asking to do something and it's an extra special thing, and I wouldn't want to normally pay for it or do for it every week, but we'll put it on this adventure day. Probably 2 out of the 4 or 5 weeks, 2 of the 4 or 5 Fridays each month, I plan them and they kind of tend to tie into whatever we're studying. So this summer we were studying volcanoes, so we got to go walk through a lava trail. We're going to go visit a lava tube cave in a couple weeks. Things like that, where they are adventures, we're learning in the world, and we are able to incorporate it into our studies, but it's fun and it doesn't take a lot of prep work for me. If literature is a really big thing for you, then I would encourage you to consider, how do you make a literature-based homeschool? Whatever you are wanting to be learning right now, whatever you're required to be learning, you can decide what curriculum or what resources you're using for that. Curriculum does not have to be a full-on book, textbook that you get. It can be books from the library. It can be a mentorship. It can be places you visit. These are all things that you can typically work into your homeschool. This is why most of us are eclectic homeschoolers. We do not choose one specific method and stick with it 100% of the way, because we've got multiple kids and they're all very unique. So I hope that this was helpful. I'm going to be coming back and helping to show you guys how to plan out your year, and then how I will plan out the rhythm of my day. I hope that you hit subscribe and check back in to see those videos. Bye.